Charlie, we're going to go over the playoff odds and the standings and everything, but I just checked the Capitals' schedule because the Flyers have these 3 days off, and then they have 2 more after the weekend back-to-back. We talked last show about the games in hand situation.
Uh-huh.
It doesn't come under control until the 15th.
That's wild.
The Flyers and Capitals end their season on the same day against each other, the 16th. It's the back end of a back-to-back for the Caps.
Right, because the Caps have a 3 and 4 to end the season, which is something I pointed out actually in a few columns, that if it does get down to a play-in game, the Flyers do have all the advantages because presumably the Capitals will be tired. They'll be in the second game of a back-to-back, the third game of a 3 and 4, and the Flyers are at home, even though someone will get back at me and say, well, the Flyers are better on the road. In theory, home ice advantage should matter. Especially in what would functionally be a playoff game.
You would think it would, but of course, nothing is ever easy with this team. I just think it's funny. We talked all last show. At what point? The point is game 81 is where they get caught up. Of an 82-game season, they will, for one day, have the same number of games played. I find that fun.
It is very funny.
Let's get to some of the standings, as the Flyers have been off for a few days. And you can see they are still
hanging on.
Still holding. The team that has not won a Metropolitan Division game in calendar year 2024, holding down that third spot in the Metro as it continues to be. The Caps are in that second wild card spot with 2 games in hand on the Flyers.
It could be real tight depending upon how these games. So the 2 games tonight that really matter, we have Capitals Penguins. So if the Caps win, they would jump the Flyers. They would then have 84 points with 1 game in hand even after that. So the Caps would have a legitimate advantage over the Flyers. And I guess the Penguins, if they upset the Caps, then I guess you have to consider them to be in the mix. They would be 2 points back of the Flyers with the same amount of games played. So Flyers will still have a significant advantage over them, but they're pushing their way back into it. And then you have the Isles Blue Jackets, a game the Isles really should win. However, they were behind for a lot of that Blackhawks game.
They were.
So there was, look, the Isles are no juggernaut. Just like how the Flyers can clearly lose.
None of these teams are good.
Like, just like how the Flyers can clearly lose to anyone, the Isles can lose to anyone, too. They're not very good either. However, if the Isles do beat the Blue Jackets, which we assume they probably will, given that the Blue Jackets are actual trash and the Isles are just mediocre, the Isles would then be tied with the Flyers completely. So.
And it's just, I guess you could argue both ways. Like, all the arguments the last couple weeks have been like, if you want expanded playoffs, this is what you're going to get. Flyers, Caps, Buffalo, like all these bad teams. The other side of the argument might be, I guess, none of them deserve it.
Right.
So, let them all kill each other in an extra game or two.
Yeah, let them have a play-in series. Because, it's the play-in in the NBA is 10 teams.
Yeah.
But it's 7 through 10.
8.
7 through 10 plays
7 plays 8, 8 plays 9. Winner of 7-8 gets the 7 seed, and then the loser gets a second shot against the winner of 9-10.
Got it.
So it's, I suppose that could be, but also oh man, those games are going to be great. Buffalo and the Pens, huh?
Yeah, right.
You did just play 82 of these things.
I guess, look, what it comes down to with these expanded playoffs things is once a league starts talking about expanding the playoffs, it's gonna happen because the money is just too clear that, it increases revenue. Everybody wants increased revenue. Players want increased revenue because they want the cap to go up. The owners want increased revenue because they're rich people who like to make more money. So we are probably, I would guess, within 5 years from an expanded playoff. So if you enjoy only 8 teams per conference in the playoffs, enjoy it while it lasts, because I can't imagine it'll last too much longer. The momentum seems to be building in the NHL.
I can't imagine. It seems as if Gary Bettman is against it.
Yes, but everyone else wants it.
And he gets to, my owners want it.
Yeah.
But I bet he can hold it off until they get to 34 teams. So it'll still be hey, right now, half the teams get in.
Yeah.
And then once it's 34, they'll be well, now less than half the league gets in. Let's make it 18.
One thing I do find funny about this, the way this playoff mix is shaping up right now, and I posted this on Twitter yesterday, but 3 weeks ago, my mentions were filled with people being well, you know what's going to happen? The Penguins are going to get the first overall pick because life is awful. And now it's completely flipped to, you know what's going to happen? The Penguins are going to pass the Flyers because life is awful.
You know, it is funny because I want to get to the playoff odds now. And you look at, I like the money puck color wheel, as I think many people do. A lot because it's so optimistic about the Flyers' chances.
It is the most optimistic.
But something that's very funny are the Penguins' chances, which right now are under 15%.
But they're going up. They're definitely trending upward.
And it's very funny because you just pointed out, like, if they were to beat the Caps tonight, they'd be 2 points back of the Flyers, no games in hand.
Right, but still
But
close.
just one game back of a team that it seems like is coming apart at the seams, you know?
Yeah.
Like, things, John Tortorella is throwing everything he can at the wall, and we'll see if it works, at least for this weekend back-to-back. But you see the Flyers there, 62.2 on Money Puck. Charlie points out Hockey Viz and The Athletic,
a little bit less optimistic.
sub 50.
Yeah, Hockey Viz has the Flyers at 46.3%. The Athletic has the Flyers at 48%. My assumption is that, because like all of these models take into account how that individual model views the team's quality.
Mm-hmm.
My guess is that Money Puck thinks higher of the Flyers' underlying quality than the Athletics model, Dom's model, and then Hockey Viz's model, Micah's model. That's probably because like it's not as if the three models are going to have significantly different views of the schedule. Like the schedule is what it is. It's not changing for these models, but Money Puck must just think the Flyers are a better team than does Hockey Viz and the Athletic.
And I would have to bet, like being called Money Puck, it probably has a little bit more to do with the straight gambling odds. Like the Flyers are going to be favorites at least in like 4 of the next 6 games.
Probably.
So, but 3 of the next 6 at least. So like,
yeah.
And then maybe one, like the Devils game, like the Devils will probably be favored, but by what? Like it's probably minus 115, minus 105.
And they might not even be because the Flyers are at home. So
could be.
I mean, I know there hasn't been a huge home ice advantage for the Flyers this year, but the gambling sites certainly do assume that.
These games are 3 or 4 of the last 6. My guess is Flyers are a favorite or it's fairly even. So that makes their like straight gambling odds a little more. And if you're judging by the underlying quality of the team, Flyers aren't that good.
Yeah,
so that makes sense that it's about 50%.
Exactly. And if I had to guess, I would guess they'll probably be favored in 5 out of 6. I would think.
All but the Rangers?
All but the Rangers. Yeah, because I mean, I think the Caps game and the Devils games are kind of toss-ups, but the Flyers have home ice.
Yeah.
So, and I mean, they certainly should be favored against Buffalo, which is the Friday game, Columbus, which is the Saturday game, and then Montreal again, which is a Tuesday game. But as they showed last week, if they play like crap, they can lose to anybody.
They could lose to a JV high school team right now if they really, really put their mind to it.
We all silly like the mayor.